Welcome to this new automotive news video for Wednesday, July 15th, 2026. On today's agenda, we'll talk about the incredible downfall of the brand that was supposed to dethrone Tesla, and the complete failure of European taxes on Chinese electric cars, about Volkswagen, which has just unveiled its brand new ID Cross, and Great Wall Motor, a Chinese brand that is preparing to launch in Europe with a new model that could seriously hurt the European competition. I hope today's topics will interest you. If that's the case, as usual, I'm counting on you to show it. You can leave a like, subscribe for my upcoming videos, boost this one if the option appears for you, and leave a comment sharing your thoughts on today's news. And just before that, I'm adding 2 more news items for you. The first one is good news for car enthusiasts. While Europe is planning to end combustion engines by 2040, Aston Martin has managed to save its legendary V12 engine. They managed to get an exemption from the European Commission, an exemption that manufacturers selling less than 1,000 units per year in Europe can apply for. Thanks to this exemption, Aston Martin will be able to continue selling V12 engines even after the year 2035, without needing to offset the CO2 emissions from its cars by selling electric vehicles. And the second small update I wanted to share with you is some additional information. Remember, a few weeks ago, we talked about the rumor that Mercedes was going to move part of its production to Hungary. Well, it's now confirmed. The German manufacturer has just invested 1 billion euros to double the capacity of its Hungarian plant, which will also become the largest Mercedes factory in Europe. Production will increase to 350,000 cars per year with 3,000 additional jobs. This is where the future electric C-Class, the electric GLC, as well as the small Mercedes G-Class will be manufactured. Mercedes said they seek more flexibility amid rising global competition, and want to benefit from Hungary's much lower labor costs versus Germany. And the manufacturer also specified that it will also produce some of its electric car batteries at the same site there as well, in order to reduce its production costs and respond more quickly to demand. The European Commission thought it could slow down the influx of Chinese electric cars with tariffs, a new tax put in place 2 years ago and 2 years later. It is clear that these taxes have missed their target and have simply served no purpose. According to a study conducted by Transport and Environment, the share of electric cars manufactured in China and then exported to Europe went from 22% of the European market in 2024 to 17% at the beginning of 2026. These figures only concern cars imported from China and do not take into account Chinese brand cars that are now produced directly in Europe, a misleading decrease that comes almost entirely from the fact that many European manufacturers have relocated their production from China to Europe. In reality, major Chinese brands like BYD, which still face an extra 17% tariff, have doubled their exports to Europe over the same period. So first of all, it doesn't work to limit the number of cars imported from China to Europe. And second, it's also useless when it comes to unfair competition. Because according to Transport and Environment, even with these extra tariffs, Chinese brand electric cars are still on average 21% cheaper than their European competitors. But above all, Chinese manufacturers have already started to bypass the extra tariffs by producing directly in Europe. Since September 2023, 10 factories of Chinese brands have been announced on the European continent, allowing them to produce their cars locally and thus avoid extra tariffs on imported vehicles. Another major weakness of this tax system is that while the European Commission was taxing electric cars, it completely lost sight of another goal, which was to slow down the arrival of Chinese electric car batteries. Since these were not subject to any extra tariffs, their imports increased 7-fold between 2020 and 2025. And actually, if we go a bit further, you should know that even when the batteries are made in Europe, only 25% of them are made by European companies. 75% of the batteries made in Europe are produced by companies that are Chinese, Korean, or American. One thing is certain: competition in the electric car market has never been so fierce. Between the offensive from Chinese manufacturers, price pressure, and the technological war, only the strongest will survive. And in fact, one of the manufacturers that was supposed to represent the future of electric cars, presenting itself as the brand that would dethrone Tesla, is now in serious trouble. A few years ago, Lucid presented itself as the manufacturer capable of shaking Tesla. Its Air model impressed the entire industry. Many saw it as the future American champion of electric cars. Today, the story is very different. On Tuesday, Lucid experienced one of the worst trading sessions in its history, as the company's value was cut in half in less than 2 hours. That's because Lucid hasn't been doing very well for many months. To get back on track, it called on a consulting firm named Alex Partners, which reportedly simply advised it to file for what is known in the United States as Chapter 11, which is bankruptcy protection, the American equivalent of bankruptcy. That's because the brand is in a particularly worrying situation. In the first quarter of 2026, the brand lost $1.03 billion. That's twice as much as a year earlier. Even worse, in 2025, the company spent over $4 billion to produce only 15,800 cars, and a financial plan that doesn't anticipate any profit before the year 2030, while the company only has enough to finance its activities until the end of 2027. To try to turn things around, Lucid laid off almost 20% of its workforce in June. This is the second wave of layoffs in 4 months. It fired all its executives to refocus on its new CEO, Silvio Napoli, and withdrew its production and sales forecast for 2026. As a result, the company has lost 97% of its value since 2021, which was its peak. And now it's no longer trying to prove it can beat Tesla, but is simply trying to survive. While European manufacturers search for strategies, Chinese brands keep accelerating. This time, it's Great Wall Motor, which isn't very well known in Europe yet, but is likely to make a name for itself, since it has just launched its new mid-range SUV there, called Aura 5. Its goal is clear: to directly compete with models like the Renault Symbioz, the Toyota CHR, and the MG ZS. The formula is the same as for other Chinese manufacturers, namely offering a long warranty, a long list of features, and very aggressive prices. The model will be available with different powertrains. Of course, there will be a fully electric version which delivers 204 horsepower, comes with a 58 kilowatt-hour battery, offers a range of 435 kilometers, and supports fast charging at 120 kilowatts. There is a hybrid version with a 1.5-liter turbocharged 4-cylinder engine producing 150 horsepower, combined with a 190 horsepower electric motor, for a total output of 223 horsepower with a range exceeding 1,000 kilometers. Finally, there's a gasoline version with a 1.5-liter turbocharged 4-cylinder engine producing 160 horsepower, paired with a 7-speed dual-clutch automatic transmission. In terms of design, the Aura 5 blends several inspirations. Its front end is reminiscent of a flattened Porsche 911. Its profile sometimes evokes, if you squint a little, that of a Porsche Macan, while some of its details are reminiscent of an Audi Q5. Inside, the atmosphere feels classic, and the feature list is particularly generous. Right from the base model, you get a 10-inch digital instrument cluster, a 14.6-inch touchscreen Apple CarPlay, wireless Android Auto, a wireless charger, a 360-degree camera, and adaptive cruise control. And now comes the real selling point that might put even more pressure on Renault, Volkswagen, or even Stellantis, because the Aura 5 starts at just 26,900 euros for the gasoline version, with an additional launch discount of 2,000 euros. For comparison, a Renault Symbioz starts at 29,000 euros, which is 3,000 to 5,000 euros more with less equipment. Great Wall Motor knows that for now, Chinese brands need to prove themselves, which is why they offer this Aura 5 with a 7-year warranty. With pressure from Chinese manufacturers, Volkswagen can no longer afford mistakes. After the ID, Polo, its major styling update for the ID, 3 and the upcoming ID, Polo GTI, the German manufacturer, is now launching the ID. Cross, its first 100% electric urban SUV. It measures 4.15 meters long, has a design very similar to what Volkswagen already does with its ID. Polo, with the illuminated logo, the LED strip, a specific light signature, and at the rear, taillights that are almost identical to those of the ID. Polo. Inside, Volkswagen is reusing nearly everything from the ID. Polo, including a 10-inch digital cluster and 13-inch central screen. Despite its compact size, the ID. Cross also focuses on interior space, with more generous rear seats. And the trunk reaches 475 liters. It is built on the MB Plus platform. 3 powertrains will be offered: 116, 135, and 200 horsepower, all of course fully electric. These motors will be paired with 2 batteries, either the small 37 kilowatt-hour LFP battery or the large 52 kilowatt-hour NMC battery, with a range that will vary from 316 kilometers to 436 kilometer WLTP. One advantage, though, is that fast charging comes standard, even on the base model, with 90 kilowatts of charging speed for the small battery and 105 kilowatts for the large battery. The lineup will consist of the Trend, Life, and Style trims, with special editions Life Edition and Style Exclusive added. Starting from the Life trim, you'll get 18-inch wheels, dual-zone climate control, adaptive cruise control, and a rear-view camera. The Style trim will add matrix LED headlights, illuminated logos, a customizable interior, and keyless entry. All of this will go on sale starting at the end of November, with a starting price announced at 28,000 euros, which is 2,000 euros less than a Renault 4. Now the real question remains: will this new push be enough for Volkswagen to regain the upper hand, while Chinese manufacturers are rolling out more and more well-equipped models, often at lower prices, and launching them at an impressive pace? Let me know what you think in the comments. In any case, I hope you found this video interesting. If you did, as always, I'm counting on you to show it by leaving a like, subscribing for future videos, and possibly supporting the channel by clicking the join button below. I'll see you tomorrow for the next video. Thank you for watching this one and see you tomorrow. Bye.